If you like old TV shows, you've definitely heard of Have Gun Will Travel and are a huge fan of Paladin. On the other hand, the person who played the creator of Paladin is nowhere to be found. What really happened to Paladin from Have Gun Will Travel? That's what this video is about. We were lucky that a star came to Earth as Boone, on June 18, 1917, in Los Angeles as Richard Allen Boone. Now, everyone knows that his relationship with his father was not a good one. When Boone was a youth, he had to fight his father's wish for him to become a lawyer. It got so bad that they began to dislike each other. There was no doubt in Boone's mind that he wanted to be much more than just a lawyer. Just because he was lazy or bad at studying wasn't the reason, not at all. He worked very hard, but he also wanted to be a person who made a difference in the world. Since he was a lawyer, he was pretty sure he wouldn't be able to do that. His artistic skills showed up pretty early on, but you'll be surprised to learn that they weren't his well-known playing skills. Instead, they were his painting skills. The guy didn't really leave home against his father's will. He first tried to be a good kid, and chose to become a lawyer. It wasn't just a choice. During a short time, he studied at Stanford to become a lawyer, but he was lucky to be able to leave that school. The attack on Pearl Harbor wasn't really lucky, but things happened the way they did, and Boone ended up in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Boone was finally able to come home from the war, after the successful bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This time, he had decided that he was tired of other people making decisions for him, and that it was time to change his life. He was passionate about what he did, and that drove him to make acting his job. Let's talk about his work now that we know what his starting point is. One thing Boone quickly learned about being an actor in Hollywood was that it wasn't as easy as it seemed. He realized that he had to work much harder than when he was a law student, but his drive kept him going, and in 1951, he got a supporting part in Call Me Mr., which was his big break. People all over the world were drawn to his rough appearance and strong playing style in his later movies, like Red Skies of Montana, 1952, which came out in the same year. The part he played in Halls of Montezuma in 1951 seemed like the best chance in his long and successful career. It helped him get much bigger roles than the ones he was doing at the time. Some big names in the acting world get a lead role and then decide they'll never do a supporting part again. Boone's career was different. Being Boone was an odd job, even for Hollywood standards, since his roles are a mix of supporting parts in big movies and lead parts in smaller ones. Some people in the business thought that was stupid of him, but joke's on them, those artists are long gone. Fans still think of Boone, so he's still alive and well. Following that plan helped him slowly become known as an extremely skilled actor who can make you a lot of money. His dedication to his job and accuracy in portraying personalities were both taken into account. Because of all of that, he got a lot more parts, and he eventually started making the switch to TV. Guys, hold on, because I'm about to teach you some history. As you already know, there was a huge demand for television in the 1950s, and all of its goods were on the rise, especially in the Western Hemisphere. This was the time when Boone made a big splash with Have Gun Will Travel. You must be thinking what made Boone a TV star, and that's what we'll tell you. It was a beautiful picture of the great night that he made. He was a person who was covered in problems and secrets. You should know that Have Gun Will Travel is the only reason why he is known for his most famous role. It is still breathtaking many people, and is hailed as one of the best westerns ever made. Even though it's been 50 years, it was all because of how well he played Paladin. The first big break in Richard Boone's TV career came from his amazing performance in the groundbreaking show The Medic. In this show, he played a hospital surgeon, and by doing so, he brought the world of medicine to the big screen with a healthy dose of reality and real medical processes. It was a big deal in the business, because the show had a unique take on medical drama. It was all because of his famous performance. We're not just saying this to flatter him. Boone was nominated for 2 Emmys for his work on the show. That's enough about the past. Let's skip ahead to the late 1950s, as this is the time that really shaped Boone's success. As we've already said, Boone played Paladin in the 1950s. The mysterious and thoughtful hitman in the Western series Have Gun Travel was not only a hit, it became a TV icon. No question that if people in the American West after the Civil War found a guy who would do anything for a small fee of $1,000, they would go crazy over him. Have Gun Will Travel was different from other westerns of the time because it had a lot of action and deep characters. A lot of the shows were directed by Gene Roddenberry. Do you know who that is? He is actually the person who made the first Star Trek. Everyone loved what he made because Paladin wasn't like other gunslingers from the Old West. He always wore a top hat and expensive clothes that looked like they were worn by gamblers on a riverboat. He lived in a fancy hotel in San Francisco. You won't find anyone with such a magnetic personality and confidence that their business cards say Have Gun Will Travel. His unique brand of honor and skill is shown by this. Paladin was smart, funny, and had a strong sense of right and wrong, which set him apart from his killer friends. The man had guns with him at all times. Mostly though, he was seen using his brains and being smart. With his unique skills, he was able to trick his enemies while wearing a black Stetson and a suit that looked both dangerous and stylish. The secret that always surrounded Paladin was one of the most interesting things about him. Not a single person in the world ever learned what his real name was. The TV version of him is not the only one like that. Fans have never been able to figure out who he really was, even in the books where he wrote under the name Clay Alexander. It's interesting that his name Paladin comes from the old European word Palladino, which means a knight or defender who is dedicated to good causes. Paladin was a mercenary with a heart for good acts and a military background, so the name fit him well. Throughout the 224 episodes of adventure and suspense, Paladin and his trusty friend went on crazy adventures that made Have Gun Will Travel a timeless classic in television history. The show kept viewers guessing who the main character was without giving away their identity. Did you know that there's a story that Richard Boone's Paladin figure was a copy? Well, that means that his figure might have been based on a real-life cowboy legend named Victor da Costa. You want to know why people are talking about it? Because Victor da Costa used to ride in rodeos under the name Paladin long before the show aired. Da Costa used to have fancy business cards and clothes that looked like they were from a Western movie, which is another reason. It was all black, like the coldest winter night. The rumors did seem to have some truth to them, since Da Costa wasn't happy with Have Gun Will Travel when it came out and sued CBS. He said they stole his style and personality without his permission. There was a lot of drama in the courts for years, until they came to a clear decision. Something that needs to be pointed out is that Chinese characters like Hey Boy and Hey Girl made short appearances. If the drama came out today, it might have caused some eyebrows to raise. But luckily for them, that wasn't a problem back then. Hey Boy was given a real name in the end, Kim Chang, and when he became famous, he was even given a family and a story. Paladin was also unique, because he wasn't a strict farmer. He was bendy, like water, which can change its shape. One of the most out-of-the-box things he did was fully accept Chinese culture and show off his kung fu and other martial arts skills. This was a very interesting scene, because it was so far ahead of its time. All the stereotypes were broken, and a positive view of different countries was shown. Have Gun Will Travel was one of the first companies to show Native Americans in a good way. It was very different from how they are usually portrayed in westerns, where they are wild bad guys. It was pretty clear that the show was popular, but when its radio version came out, it was even more clear. The best thing about this spin-off was that the handsome John Dehner played Paladin. Dehner was famous for his roles in Western TV shows in the 1950s and 1960s, and he also played roles in The Twilight Zone. The 106 episodes of Have Gun Will Travel, which aired from 1958 to 1960, captivated both viewers and reviewers. The follow-up was so good that it was nominated for 3 Emmys, and won Gene Roddenberry the 1957 Guild of America Award for Best Original Script. That the show's music was even more like a national song. If you think we're lying, we just need you to listen to it once. There is a 99.9% chance that you will become hooked on the music of the Ballad of Paladin, which was written by Bernard Herrmann. Another interesting thing about the show, the theme music for the beginning, came from a 1951 movie that became famous thanks to Paladin. Here is an idea for you. What a huge deal it would be if there was a hip-hop version of the Ballad of Paladin, and the famous rapper played the lead role. Well, look at the hype that's already going strong inside you. When a rumor started going around in 2006 that Eminem was going to steal the election, that's how everyone felt. Everything has an end date, and so did our Paladin. The fans were about to cry, but not because the character was killed off. It was because they killed off the character so badly. People stopped looking at Paladin when the show's finale played, and the end of the story was getting close. Instead they looked at a guy named Boone. The person named Boone, on the other hand, didn't seem to be important at all. Only Paladin seemed to be valuable. No one cared enough to tell Boone that the show was over, which broke his heart. He read about it in a bunch of papers, not from a friend or a boss. It was really rude of them to do that. That's probably why Boone quit the industry. He may have realized that they only saw him as a way to make money. Even after 3 years, Boone's view of the industry didn't change much. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, he talked about some of the problems he had working in TV, and how hard it was for him to balance being creative with making money. He told everyone how unfair it was that the entertainment business was focusing so much on glitz and beauty. It was getting harder and harder to do your best work in TV. Because Richard Boone wanted to live a simpler life away from the chaos of Hollywood, he packed his things and moved to the peaceful shores of Hawaii with his third wife Cla Malin and their child. Making this choice cut Boone off from the business for good, which was a big change in his life. Some people think that he didn't leave Hollywood because his life as a paladin came to an end. Instead, they think that the cancellation of his compilation show, The Richard Boone Show, helped him get back on good terms with the entertainment world, and let him focus on what was important to him outside of Hollywood's glitz and glamour. Boone didn't act like a spoiled brat. He said what was on his mind. When the business bit him, he came clean and said, "I don't want to live in Southern California anymore." He didn't leave the industry because he was dumped. He just didn't want to be committed to any more TV shows. He could easily return to the industry because it was only a 4-hour trip from LA. Another reason he left LA was that Hollywood schools didn't have enough different kinds of people. He always wanted his son to walk with kids from all walks of life. That dream came true in Hawaii. Hawaii became a safe place for him to be. It was in 1971 that Boone said, "I got what I was looking for in Hawaii. It's time to go on." He would say, "I still love Hawaii and I'll always go back there even after living there for a long time." He said that on the Big Island, holding on to his Kona Costa boat is like holding on to a valuable heirloom. Boone had a deep love for Hawaii that he even put on a show for the 1968 movie Kona Coast, and played a role that was important to him. He had hopes of making it into a series, and he wanted to leave his mark on the island's movie scene for good. This was also like his return to the business when he started having back-to-back hits with Pacific, Big Jake in 1971, and The Shootist in 1976. When Boone came into the business with a fresh new attitude, it was the start of a new era. His voice acting in the cartoon TV version of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit in 1977 was truly amazing. Additionally, Boone played Heck Ramsey in a number of Western TV movies from the early 1900s. From 1972 to 1974, NBC showed a mystery movie every week. Some of the adventures that McCloud, Columbo and Macmillan and his wife went on in turn were shown in the series. He was more than just Paladin. It was a part of him that no one will ever forget. He changed into a better person after the Paladin in him died. He used to say that he had very different ideas about playing. For him it wasn't just a job, it was a way of life. And in a conversation in 1963 he said that genius is not a treasure that is hard to find. There are more talented people in the world than there are pretty girls and bald guys. Sadly, most talented people go unnoticed their whole lives. There's no other choice for people who want to be good players. They need to do it. This is how he felt about acting after he said goodbye to Paladin. In 1970, Boone chose to move to St. Augustine, Florida. Although he wasn't the center of attention, he began to do what he had always wanted to do since he was a kid. She picked up a paintbrush and began making art that made everyone who saw it feel alive. He wanted to motivate people the same way he did when he was the Paladin. For most of the 1970s he kept his creative fires burning. But he also became a mentor to new artists and taught them how to get around Hollywood. He wasn't just the actor who played Paladin in a movie, he was now in his unique way. Richard Boone, a professor at Flagler College in St. Boone, taught a lesson that echoed like a word in the wind. He always told me not to become a performer. It may seem strange that one of the best actors of his time was telling people not to become actors, but Boone wasn't crazy. He had a reason for being crazy. You can't avoid it unless you have to. When I say have to, don't act like you have to. It's not because of money. I mean, it's an absolute must. These were the words he used that made his students want to learn more. Adding to that, he said it was a very grown-up way of life, with grown people acting like someone else. People are locked up for that. Agreed that there is a thin line between pretending to be someone else and being a serious actor, and that to do it properly, you need to know how much depth and commitment it takes, whether you're playing a hero or a villain. Richard Boone was a great actor who could do a lot more than just westerns, and in Man on a Tightrope, he played Crofta, a figure with ties to both the circus and the Communist Party. This is a famous example of one of his bad guy roles. Boone made Crofta seem like a complicated person with different goals, which gave his character more depth and complexity. Boone was very good at playing both good guys and bad guys, as shown by his work as Sam in The Arrangement and Lieutenant Colonel Gilfillan in Halls of Montezuma. As the stubborn father of an executive who was having a mental breakdown in The Arrangement, he gave an excellent performance, even though the movie had many problems. As Lieutenant Colonel Gilfillan in Halls of Montezuma, played by Boone, the character was shown to be tired and worried while on the attack on a Pacific island. Most people think that Boone was only famous for his work with Paladin, but they forget that he had a great career that lasted over 30 years, and that his many awards showed that he could play any role. His journey from the legendary Paladin to the heart-pounding Frank Usher to the moving Sam is live proof of how great his career has been. Richard Boone is remembered for a lot more than just playing Paladin and Have Gun Will Travel. The world saw how good and deep Boone was as an actor through a lot of different parts. But before getting into these less well-known but important parts, it's important to understand what Paladin was like, because he was different from the one-dimensional heroes that were common in 1950s TV westerns. Have Gun Will Travel is still remembered for both the figure of Paladin and the beautiful way Richard Boone played him. It was Boone's heroic TV parts that made him famous, but he never reached the heights of Paladin. He had a lot of promise to play bad guys in movies. He never got the right chance or writing, though. Boone played the cruel leader of the outlaws in The Tall T, Frank Usher, who was not afraid to kill in cold blood. Even though the part he was given was very evil, Boone gave Usher such a vibe and sensitivity that the character was even more evil than the makers had planned. Boone was a famous actor who could play a lot of different parts because he could give his characters a lot of depth, whether they were good or bad. Boone spent his whole career trying to get better at what he did, and it was clear when he told his younger actors the truth about how hard acting is and how important it is to work hard and be dedicated. Even now, people who want to be artists can learn a lot from what he wrote. The time for Boone came at the same time as the time for Paladin. The makers killed Paladin, and Boone was taken away by fate. Boone was a real fighter, and when he got throat cancer in the 1980s, he fought until the end. But maybe fate liked him too, because it was about to take him away. He had been sick with cancer for a long time, and was ready to give up when he was diagnosed with pneumonia. On January 10, 1981, he left this world. His death came at the age of 63, and he left behind his gun, which will never be seen again.